So in this video, I'll be working with assembling the electronics needed for the Piper using a RAMPS 1.4. Look for the other videos on a RAMPS 1.5 and a RAMPS 1.6. I've got the Discount Full Graphics Smart Controller. I've got the adapter to the RAMPS board, the cables, the RAMPS board itself, a Mega 2560. I've already programmed this. See the list of articles and videos to watch that video. There's a lot of special things you need to do to program this. This is a Chinese 2560 and it uses a CH340, which you have to have a special driver for. And my webpage and video will tell you how to get that, take some of the pain out of it. So this is the 1.4. The 1.5 is only slightly different and has the same functionality. The 1.4 is the base model. The 1.5 and the 1.6 improve how it functions to the outside world. It doesn't really improve the functionality of the board itself. So, right off the bat, we'll mount the RAMPS 1.4. We'll check for bent pins, and I don't see any. I'll check these to see if they're lined up. So if you line up the back header, everything else will be lined up. So that sits in pretty good. You don't want to force it. If you're using a whole bunch of force, it means something here is bent or not lined up. But this seems to be okay, so I'll just squeeze that together. So that went together well. The RAMPS 1.4 has a little bit of the same problem as the RAMPS 1.5. These pins on the bottom of the power connector come down and touch this power connector, but it still doesn't sit quite as flat as it should. If you change that to have these pins go behind that so that it goes down further, you run the danger of engaging that center pin off this power supply, and I don't want to do that. So while I'm here, I'll just glance at this. These seem to be in a good row, seem to be lined up fairly well. There's 3 jumpers under each motor controller. To evaluate all of the options, I'm using the green A4988. The 1.5 is going to use the red A4988, and we'll see if there's any differences. So the first thing I want to do is put these jumpers on, and that sets the micro stepping. And there's 3 under each motor controller. And you just want to install these. Now, this RAMPS 1.4 did not come with any jumpers. I did buy several of the CNC version 3 boards to use with the Unos, and they had a ton of these jumpers, so I installed some of those, but I also ordered 200 to have on hand. Did I need 200? No, but that's the least you could order for a reasonable price. So there we go, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, all installed and ready to go. So now I've got to install the motor controllers. Now it's very important you do this correctly or it will fry the board. There's a pin and it's labeled enable, and it's on the bottom right. So it's this pin right here. Now you have to find the enable on this board. Now, this board labels it the full enable. This board enables it EN. So I went and got a magnifying glass so we can look at this. Okay, the EN pin is the top left on this. So you can see there's a problem with this board. These pins go in, but these don't, so that one of these sides isn't lined up correctly. So just take your thumb or finger and kind of push that in a little. Not too far, you run into the other problem. So now I went too far. So I'm going to actually push this side over. I'm going to keep checking that enable to be sure I got it in the right place. I do not want to take a chance of running these controllers. I bought a couple extra, but not really. Oops, I put that in wrong. I didn't put it in the first pin. So there we go. And that will go right in. Now I want to check. I put that enable pin right there. It is. Actually, it has it right on top. It has EN right on the board. So I want to look at the board itself. And I want to verify that what I used is EN, which would be the top one here. Actually is EN, and you can see it. So I did okay choosing that. So once I got the first one on, if I keep the same orientation, I should be okay. So the potentiometer goes down. So I just keep doing this. Oops, a bent pin. I should have checked for that. Now this was an oddity. I ordered these and they didn't come in individual packets. The red ones came in individual packets, but the green came on this foam, and the DV8255, I could be wrong on the part number, they came on foam. So here I have another one. Get the orientation correct. So I'll put, oh, another bent pin. That's a quality control problem, but the reds didn't have any bent pins and they were in individual packets. These weren't in individual packets and have bent pins, so apparently they were handled quite roughly before they were put in the foam. So line up the pin again. There's enable. This one's not lined up very good. This one's at an angle. So I'm going to try to bend that over just a little. You stand a chance of snapping something when you do this. So line up pin 1. I think I found a combination that works. I want to inspect that and be sure the pins are going in the holes. Because if they don't go in the holes, they won't work, and they could bend and break off if you force them too much. Okay, so the last one. This time I'm just going to inspect this before I start. See, this side is very lopsided. So I want to keep the potentiometer down so that the EN pin fits into the EN header. It's kind of hard to do this and show it and actually do it. So there, I kind of bent that a little bit. There we go, snapped right in. I don't seem to have bent any pins. So that's looking really good. We have a lot of stuff to connect, but I just want to do the assembly on this one. So I take the Smart graphics controller header, which is an adapter, and I take the double row and put over here. I've also got to line up this back row. Oh, that went together fairly easy. Pushed right on. Got the basic functionality. I've got the 2560, the RAM's 1.4. I need the graphics display. Now these graphics cables are keyed. And there are open slots here. And it's a natural mate. I wish they would take one header and put all the way across, because you have two headers like this. It is possible, I admit remotely, but it is possible that you could hook them into the back of this incorrectly. Okay, so I've got them in side by side as they come out of the RAM's 1.4. Because of the way they plug in, I actually got to do it from this direction. Now before I power anything up, I'm going to check this. So see, I've got parallel cables. So that should work okay. Now apparently this has sound capability, because that is a piezoelectric speaker. Technically a piezoelectric buzzer, but still. And I've already programmed the 2560. I've got a separate article on that, a separate video on that. You know, when I hook this into the system and actually go into production, power will come through here, and I will not connect any power to the USB. But I will plug that in, and we can see the Marlin firmware come up, and BFP 3D printer ready. BFP is big, fast printer. You can adjust the contrast with this. And you can kill it with this. Luckily it has a reset button right here. Marlin 119. So I've got basic functionality. I've got the 2560 working. If that's displaying, it's working. The RAMPS 1.4 is working. There again, if it's displayed here, it's working. The graphics controller is wired up correctly. I've got the motor controllers on, but I don't know that those work yet. So what I need to do is set up a test program to test those. And before I use them, I've got to put on the heat sinks. I looked these up and it says if you don't put on the heat sinks, you will burn them up. So we have a functioning hardware. We have the 2560, the RAMPS 1.4, the graphics controller, the motor controllers, the jumpers underneath, and the heat sinks. So this is ready to move to the next step. For this one, I printed a case. So without too much worry, you got to pry off this knob and it just pulls off. So after I take off the knob, I'll put this on. Give you holes to get to the stop and the contrast. And I'll put the lid over this. It's a little awkward to assemble. This is more or less a test fit. You don't have to remember where that mark was when you put this on. Just mount it in the center. That is a rotary encoder. When you turn it on, everything's relative. It'll establish where it's at. So turn this over. Now to get this on, I've got to pull these cables. So I've got to be sure and put them back in the right place too. So put the cover on. I'll do this so that I know I've got them in the right place. Okay, so there's a nice case for the display, and there is an add-on to mount it on something. I don't have a box yet printed for this that I'm happy with. I've printed several, but they all have limitations. So I'll keep looking on Thingiverse to find something. So there is the assemble of the RAMPS 1.4 Mega 2560, the motor controllers, heat sinks, and the Smart Graphics controller. So if you like the videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.